Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about how to buy real estate with credit. And before we kind of get into my little presentation, I want to just kind of like shoot an update of what I see in the real estate marketplace and how it's going to be very interesting and kind of what's going to probably happen. First we had COVID to keep the economy afloat. Essentially what America did is we printed a whole bunch of money, right? So we printed a ton of money, basically just to keep things rolling, right? Because we came to an economic standstill, nobody was going to work, blah, 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 blah. So when they printed all the money, it caused this inflation, which is why groceries are so high and everything else is so high. And then basically once they realized that we were kind of going in a negative direction, what they did to counter it is they made interest rates and they made it more expensive basically to get money. So the average mortgage rate now is actually like 8%, I would say. I think this is really low. So, which is very high for, mortgages out there, which is very high for everybody who's trying to buy real estate. But here's the interesting thing. Interest rates are really high, right? So everybody can complain about that. But the demand for real estate is still very high. People don't really care about the mortgage rate. They want to buy as much real estate as possible. So there is still a limited supply of real estate on the market these days, which means that what's going to happen is if you wait until the market crashes, which is probably not going to happen. What I think is actually for real estate, at least the stock market might crash. Everything else might get weird, but for real estate, the demand is still so high and the supply is still so low that the prices of houses is not going anywhere, if that makes sense. Printed a ton of money. Now we're trying to combat the printed money that we did, and they've raised the interest rates. So even with high interest rates, the supply for real estate is still incredibly low. So what's going to happen going forward in the future is when the interest rates come down, we're still going to have this massive wave of buyers trying to buy up all the real estate, but there's still going to be not very much, which is going to increase the price of housing, right? Which is like, everybody should know this already, but it's like, the best time to buy a house is, yesterday or whatever, or the best time to plant a tree is yesterday. So I just wanted to let you guys know that so that it's kind of a good idea to figure out, okay, maybe I should buy as much real estate now as I can. Now we're going to get into how we can buy real estate with credit, because that's why we're all here, kind of like what we're going to be working on together inside of the real estate mentorship. You're just one funding round away from being able to buy your dream investment. And this is actually the presentation that's going to lead me into the next presentation, which is the one that I'm currently excited about. So this is just I want everybody to be on the same level. I want you guys to start thinking about how can I get access to real estate, right? And using credit cards. How can we literally turn one of these little plastic cards into a real house in the real world? That's actually something that we can hold on to. Robert Kiyosaki, I was watching one of his interviews and he's like, I don't invest in anything that they can print, so I don't invest in stocks. He doesn't invest in Bitcoin. He invests in oil fields. He invests in real estate. He invests in businesses, things that are actual assets in the real world that, can't be taken away from you. Okay. So you're just one funding round away from your dream investment. Let's say you come into the program, we get you 150,000 in credit though. It's not cash. You didn't have the money before. And now you do, and it's just on these little credit cards, right? How can you actually turn that into real estate? A couple ways, right? So the first way that we're probably going to talk about the most or to start thinking about is you can liquidate the credit cards and buy a house with a mortgage. But then there's also the other exciting ways that I'm more interested in, which is subject to seller financing, novation agreements, and then Airbnb isn't exactly it's not buying real estate, but it's still a way that you can actually make money with real estate and use credit to make it happen. So the secret to real estate is don't make it too complicated. I've been in this real estate game for a minute, and it's very, very simple. Okay, to be successful in real estate, you need to do a lot of deals. To do a lot of deals, you need to make a lot of offers. To make a lot of offers, you need to talk to a lot of sellers. And to talk to a lot of sellers, you need to do a lot of marketing. It's a 4-step business plan. You just got to do marketing. You got to talk to sellers. You got to make offers, and you got to follow up. If you make 5 offers a day, 25 offers a week, 100 offers a month, you're going to get some of these deals. Okay. And there's lots of ways that we can go into marketing. I've got tons of videos on it. This is more about just buying real estate with credit. But I just wanted to put this in there so that that real estate is not as complicated as people make it out there. Yes, you have to know the numbers, but when you have a lot of leads, it makes it very easy to be successful in real estate. So first of all, how are we going to buy a house with credit cards? So the first thing, we got you 150,000 on credit. First thing I want you to do is you don't have to do marketing. You can also just reach out to real estate agents. You can do a lot of other stuff for free, but in order to find like a subject to property, innovation, or a seller finance, I would expect you to put at least $10,000 into marketing. Because again, real estate, if you have a lot of leads and a lot of sellers, it makes it very, very easy to be successful. Next, you're going to liquidate 100K, but you have $150,000 on credit cards. Now, liquidating is not like a simple process, and you're going to have to pay a 3% merchant fee, okay? And we use a website called Plastique. Plastique, essentially, you put your credit card in here, and it will direct deposit the cash from your business into your personal accounts. But it does it in a way so that you won't get shut down, right? But you can only do a little bit every single day. So when you get the funding, if your goal is to buy a deal, I would start liquidating quite a bit of the cash right away, especially real estate. Real estate is kind of the only investment that you need to have a large cash sum to really get going. Most other things you can just pay with a credit card, right? But with Plastique, you're going to basically set up your business account. You're going to set up your personal account. And then if you know anybody else who has a business as well, you can actually basically put the credit card in. It goes to their merchant device, and then it goes to your bank account. But you'll have to pay a 3% fee if you want to liquidate the cash fast. But I just want you to know that it is possible to just turn those credit cards into just a stack of cash. But you do have to go through a process, and you're going to have to liquidate a little bit every single day. Okay. You can't just like stick it in there and then liquidate 100,000. It's going to take about at least 2 to 3 weeks, I would say, to get 100K off those credit cards. But you can either find the deal and then do it in a panic, or you can have the mindset like, I'm going to liquidate these credit cards and I'm going to find a deal while I'm doing it. Okay. So I just want you to know that. But just so you know, you can turn credit cards into cash. You just have to use Plastique, and you have to be kind of creative with it. Now let's talk about how to get a mortgage from that. So you've liquidated the credit cards. You now have 100K ready to go to buy a real estate investment. This is typically what the market is telling you. And this is like, I got this, I literally called my real estate buddies, and I've looked into trying to buy quite a few houses lately. And this is what they want to see. They want to see a 720 credit score. They want at least 20% down. Now you can get grants, and you can get like first-time home buyers, and you can do all kinds of stuff to get less than 20%. But that's typically what they want to see. And then they want to see that you're making at least 152K. That's for a $500,000 house though. Okay. And the reason it's 152 is because if your mortgage payment is $3,000 or whatever it is, 30,000 a year, they want to see that it's at least 30% of your yearly income. This is why if you're going to buy a house, you kind of got to pay taxes. You got to make it so like it shows that you're making some money so that you can get approved for a mortgage from the banks. And that's why, this is such a pain in the ass to get approved. But here's the thing that I want you guys to look at is it's only for a $500,000 home. It's $3,000 a month. So this is the big epiphany that the next video is going to be going into, the next training is going to be into, is how can we make $3,000 a month passively so we can pay for a freaking mortgage without having to worry about it or work for it. Okay, that's what the next episode is, but this is where we're at right now. But this is what people want to see in order to get a $500,000 house. And if you want to get $1 million house, you just double these numbers. Okay, so $1 million mortgage is $6,000 a month. Very doable, very awesome. Probably have to put $250,000 down and have to be making like $300,000 a year, which is crazy, right? The average American does not make 152K, does not make $300,000, right? So we need to basically get creative with how we're going to buy houses on credit. Just wanted to put this out there though. If you can get 100K liquid, you can get a mortgage. You can probably find a house less than a 500K and have a less of a payment, but this is pretty much what it is. And the thing that stuck in my head, and I want you guys all to think about, is how can I make $3,000 a month passively from the credit? Because a lot of the times I want you guys to first get the funding, invest in your education, create a cash flowing business, and then use the profits from the cash flowing business or the passive income to pay for real estate. That's the goal. The next one, though, we're going to talk about is subject to. Okay, so subject to is how you buy properties without the banks. You basically are going to take over somebody else's payments, and right now is possibly the best time in history to master subject to. When the government was basically printing all that money, you were able to buy a house for at the top of the market, right? These people bought a house, they got a mortgage at the top of the market, and yes, they kind of had a little bit lower interest. It was only like 2%, but now that the economy has not gotten better, these people are still underwater on their payments for their house, right? So they literally got the mortgage in at the highest point in the market, which was like 2020, 2021, or even 2019. And now they can't make their payments on their mortgage and they're underwater. So what happens when you buy a subject to piece of real estate is you basically step in and you say, look, I'm going to take over the mortgage payments and I'm going to own the property, right? And sometimes there's agreements where typically what I've seen for a subject to is they basically lost their job, they got a divorce, they just have this house, they can't afford it, somebody passed away. There's some sort of pain point or of why they can't pay their mortgage. And what usually has to happen is you're going to have to pay to get the property out of arrears, because a lot of the time they're in pre-foreclosure or they're going to lose their house and the banks are going to seize the property if they don't sell it subject to, or you're going to have to pay to help them put a down payment on a place for them to rent. Okay. So in the end, you're going to have to plan to put $10,000 into marketing. If you want to basically buy a subject to house, these people bought their house probably in the last 4 years, and they're probably already in pre-foreclosure. That's like a secret tip. I can show you on Batch Leads exactly how to target these people. But a lot of the times for a subject to, you can literally get a house for free. Okay. You don't have to get approved for a mortgage from the bank. You just have to negotiate the deal with the seller. And in order to find one of these deals, though, you like when I had my wholesaling company, I literally would pull a list of about 1,000 people, and then I would say 2 out of 1,000 would turn into a subject to. Those are kind of the statistics on like, do these exist? Yes, they exist. When they're there, you need to lock them up and put them under contract as soon as possible. So I'm obsessed with subject to. I'm constantly reaching out to that are underwater on their mortgage, and I try and figure out a way. Hey, what if I give you $20,000? And I take over the payments on your mortgage? Would that make sense to you? Okay, so now you've literally figured out a way that out of that $100,000 in credit, you've gotten one house for $20K. Probably had to put $10K into marketing to find it, but now you've got a house for $30,000. It could be $1 million house, it could be $500,000, and you're going to take it over, but you still have to make that mortgage payment. So that's something you got to think about, but you still have a lot of cash. This is absolutely the best way to get into real estate. And if you just put your focus on trying to find subject to properties, you will find them. Again, if you make offers and you go out there. Okay, so I hope this explained it a little bit. Basically, they have a mortgage. You step in, you get them to sign an agreement. You take over, you pay the mortgage for them, right? But you become the owner of the property. Okay, and you can go into a lot more detail on this, and I have other videos that explain this a lot more. Okay, but now we're going to talk about seller financing, and why seller financing for land and seller financing for real estate is really what I want to focus on as well. So subject to, seller financing, these are the best ways to buy houses on credit. Seller owns the property and basically becomes the bank. The difference between a subject to and a seller finance is when the seller is financing, they already own the house free and clear, or they're very close to owning the house free and clear. Okay, because they're basically, instead of you going to get approved for a mortgage and taking over the property, they're going to become the bank, and you're going to make monthly payments to them as opposed to making monthly payments to the bank. I hope that makes sense. So typically for a seller finance deal, you do have to put money down. They probably want 20% as well, just like the banks do. But the cool thing with seller finance is you can negotiate. It's whatever you can agree with. Okay, and then sometimes they want a balloon payment. A balloon payment is where you basically, in like 10 years, you pay off all that's the remaining balance. It's basically just where you pay off the bills. Okay, so you can get into a seller finance deal very cheap. You can rent out the property and you can just save up all the profits, and then eventually you can pay it off, or you can try and cash flow on these. But the main thing with seller financing is you can negotiate. And the way that you find seller financing deals is you always look for tired landlords, right? People who are just like tired of basically managing the house, managing the tenants, that really wants to sell their house. You can target people who are basically trying to sell a property that they inherited as well. So inherited, tired landlords. And you can also target people that own their houses free and clear, and you can make them an offer. Okay. And the reason that a lot of people will sell to you on seller finance is if they put the property on the market, they might get lowballed constantly. So instead of getting lowballed, you can say, look, how about I pay you what you want, maybe even a little bit more, but instead of you getting paid by the banks or getting a mortgage, you let me make monthly payments to you and you become the bank. Okay, this is very powerful. And just like a quick tip, real quick, like I literally just went on, I just Googled Redfin owner finance, and you can, like, this is in Phoenix. So we'll just click here. I mean, there's literally properties. You just can type in wherever you live, owner financing, right? Look at this cool ass house. And they say owner financing is a possibility. I'm sure if they were going to owner finance this to me, they would probably want $1 million. And they'd be fine with that because this house is freaking gorgeous. But it says potential owner financing available. So they probably would want 20% down, which is, quite a lot of money. like I said, it's like $200,000, but then you could have this house as owner financing. But because it's owner financing, maybe you can negotiate with them. Maybe you can pay 25 grand a month or something like that, or give them 100,000 and then, pay the next, other 100,000 in a couple months or something like that. The cool thing about real estate that I learned is you can literally make these deals, anything that you can get them to agree to. And then the other thing that I'm very, very focused on right now is buying land. So I've decided I'm going to become like a dirt lord. But look at this. So you basically go to landwatch.com, you click owner financing, and then there's all these different properties that people are willing to sell. And obviously you don't want to just buy the crappy ones, but you want to figure out like where you're located and where is the land that could potentially be an owner financing deal. For these kind of deals, discounted cash price is $30,000. Seller financing is $30,000. So you got to put $3,000 down, and then whatever else is remaining will be monthly payments. Now, I don't know if you want to live here, but you can really start to get into land and discovering where the most properties are being sold. So like instead of owner financing, we go Arizona. And you want to see where land is being sold, right? So instead of clicking on available, you click on sold. And the reason this is just for land flipping. This isn't for investing. This is like, hey, I'm going to put, $10,000 into something. I'm going to sell it for $20,000. Okay. So now you can look at where the properties have been sold the most. So it looks like in the northern region has had the most land sold. So then if you bought a piece of land out there, you'd probably have a good chance of flipping it. Okay. But anyways, I did all this just to show you like owner financing is actually not that hard. You can literally just like click this button and it will start to tell you, hey, here's some land you can buy. Hey, here's some real estate that you can buy on owner financing. So you liquidate the cash and you start to find deals like this that are in your area. And then you can basically learn how to get a property, liquidate the cash, find someone who wants to sell or finance you a property. And now you've got your first piece of real estate, or you're building your real estate portfolio in a very cool way. Okay, next, these are called novation agreements. Where was I? I was at Lake Charles. They got hit by a hurricane, and essentially a lot of the houses just got torn up, and a lot of people go down there to retire. So they didn't have the money, or they were too old to repair their properties, right? So then we would basically reach out to these owners and say, and like a lot of them, they had like a tree fall on their house, or, they got really bad flooding or something. And a novation agreement is basically where you sign an agreement, like they still own the house, but when the house sells, you're going to get 30% of the profits, or you're going to get all the money you put into the house plus 50% of the profits, right? So it's basically an agreement where the house is going to get repaired and it's going to get sold. And when the house gets sold, you guys are going to split the profits together, okay? A novation agreement is very cool. It doesn't have to just be when there's a disaster, but that's typically when I've seen a lot of novation agreements. Houston also got hit by a hurricane, and we did quite a few novations there. Actually, I don't know if it was a hurricane, but it was just like a real bad storm, basically. And this is basically a novation is going to be really good for if the house is like a fix and flip near you, then you have the time and you have the capital from the credit to fix up the property, right? You can make an agreement with the seller, be like, hey, I will fix this house. I'll put a lot of my money into it. I want to guarantee that I'm going to get all the money I put into it back. And when the house sells, we'll split the profits. Okay. And you can basically arrange the agreement however you want, and you can basically split it. And the main thing is once the house sells, you guys will split the profits together. And this is how you can have it in a contract. So you're not just doing it on a handshake. And you can have all kinds of stuff in that contract that says, like, if we don't sell it, I own prior to the property after a certain amount of months or whatever it is. But novation agreements are very powerful, and I think they're really cool, especially when, there's hurricanes or there's storms, or people are just like have a house that they've never wanted to put time into, or they live out of state and they buy properties. There's another novation that we found in Ohio, and the owner, he owned like 56 houses in Ohio. And he just didn't really care. He was like, yeah, I just want to sell most of my houses, but this house is very old and needs a lot of work. And we found a contractor in the area, and basically the contractor did all the work. We paid for it to get repaired. I never really went and saw the property. We put the property on the market once it was fixed, and we made, like 25 grand or something like that. So there's very different ways where you can get into a novation agreement. And it's just very good to get this under contract, because if you don't have a contract, when the house sells, there's actual money. Sometimes the buyers, I don't know, there's just nothing to hold their feet to the fire to pay you back the money that you put into the house plus the profits. So it's just good to have everything in a contract. Okay, and then we can talk about Airbnb real quick. But the cool thing about Airbnb is you don't actually need to buy the house, right? But this is not passive income. This is very active income. So you basically would find tired landlords or apartment complexes as well. You can do this with apartment complexes, and you can literally just Google Airbnb opportunities or leases or something like that. And you can find these deals where, and you won't own any of the property, but you have a basic payment every month, right? So let's say you find an apartment, they'll rent it to you for $1,000. You get approved to make it into an Airbnb. The key thing is you have to get approval, otherwise this won't work. You lock down the contract. You're going to use the credit cards to basically furnish the apartment or the place. And you're gonna make it nice. Like the real key to like being successful on Airbnb right now is like make yourself unique in the marketplace. It's all about location, or make your Airbnb like a destination, right? Make it like a theme or something fun, or just have a really good location. But you're gonna use your credit cards to furnish the apartments and to make them really nice. You're gonna list it on Airbnb. And you're going to rent, and you're going to basically profit more than what the lease costs, right? So if it costs $1,000 to rent the apartment, you're going to list it on Airbnb and you're going to make $3,000 a month, right? And then you keep the difference, and that's how you can basically start to do Airbnb arbitrage, using your credit to build up this portfolio. The only thing that it does cash flow very well, but you don't own anything. So this could actually be your first way to get into real estate. If you really love real estate, you take the profits from this and then you go forward and you buy another property. A best way to target these is literally just do a lot of Google, check a lot of Facebook, go on Craigslist, and just call tired landlords and people who have been trying to rent a property for a long time and haven't had a lot of success. And then the other thing is you can say, hey, look, I'll pay you a little bit more than what you're asking if you let me turn this into an Airbnb. And the thing is that you have to understand is like if you have that lease, though, if anything happens to the apartment or anything happens to the house, you will be held liable. And that's kind of out of your control, right? So you just kind of have to have the agreements in place so that if like the walls get punched or something gets broken, you're going to fix it, and the owner understands that. So you really want to find, but there's a lot of really big apartment complexes or a lot of big places that need people like you to promote someone to stay there or promote it on Airbnb, because they just don't do it. So you can make quite a bit of money. So this is rental arbitrage. So instead of looking for houses for sale, you look for houses for rent, and you say, hey, can I maybe work out where we turn this into an Airbnb? I'll manage it, I'll clean it, I'll put it on Airbnb, I'll pay you the monthly bills every single month. Is that cool with you? It's like having a property manager, except for that they're going to be making a profit and putting it on Airbnb. So that's very, very powerful to get started. Okay, so here is the conundrum, right? And this is what we're going to get into next. But I had to make this presentation so I can make the next presentations, where it's all about creating passive income, creating income to pay for the house payments. Because the problem with buying the house on credit is not only are you now own a real, like the cool thing is you turn credit cards into a real asset, into a real house, right? But now you have to pay the mortgage or the real estate payment or the whatever it is, and you have to pay back the credit cards. Okay, so the way that you do that is that the credit cards typically are that we get people are 0% interest for 12 to 24 months, right? So that means you typically have 12 to 24 months to pay back the credit cards. So the credit cards need to get paid back as fast as humanly possible. But you also have to figure out how you're going to make enough cash flow to pay for the real estate payment. Okay. And the way that you're going to want to do this, though, is you're going to want to find a way to make extra income, right? Or passive income. You can either invest, like you guys have the opportunity to invest into campaign marketing with us. But the next presentation I'm going to be going into is how to create this passive income. And once you have that passive income making it $3,000 a month, now you can liquidate your credit cards, go find a deal, and the passive income is going to pay the mortgage off, and then your regular income is going to pay off the credit cards. And the way that you pay off the credit cards is you figure out which one of the credit cards has the highest interest, right? And you pay that one first. Obviously, you want to make on-time payments all the time. So the typical rule is if you liquidate 100,000, there's going to be a 1% basically charge every single month to keep those credit cards happy. And that's just the minimum balance, though. So what is that? Like $1,000 a month, basically, is what you're going to have to pay for those credit cards. So you're going to have the mortgage or the rent on the real estate deal, and you're going to have to pay $1,000 on the credit cards. And the best way to do this is to have a passive income stream in place before you find the deal, right? So first you make the passive income, or first you make the business have the cash flow, you liquidate the credit cards, you find the deal, you have the cash flow pay for the property, and then you just work your ass off to pay for the house. Now, here's the cool thing about real estate though. If you do get the mortgage or you do anything, you're going to work your ass off and you're going to pay that mortgage down for 2 years, right? And then you're going to probably be able to either refinance or get a HELOC on that property and pull the cash out. And that's how you're going to buy your next piece of property. Okay. But the conundrum is how do I make $3,000 a month passively so that I can buy this property? Okay. And then you're going to work your ass off to pay off the credit cards as well. But the cool thing is you now own a real piece of real estate in the real world that you can basically live in, that you can rent out, that has equity that's going to go up in value. Because remember at the beginning of the call, I said the interest rates are really high, but the demand is also really high, but the inventory is very, very low. Okay. So if you can buy real estate fast now, what's going to happen is the interest rate might go down, but the demand is going to go, but the supply is going to go down even more, and the demand is going to go up even more. Thus, the price of real estate is probably going to go through the fucking roof. So there's not going to really be that time where real estate is going to get cheaper. It's more likely going to get more expensive. Or if it does get a little bit cheaper, it's going to dip just a little bit and then it's going to go back up. Right. It just all depends on the economy and what happens. But from what I can tell, if 8% interest is not deterring people from buying real estate, then the inventory is going to get smaller and the demand is going to keep going up. And then that's basically how we do it. So next, we're going to go over how to create passive income to pay for the house and pay the credit cards off. And that's going to be my next presentation. But I had to do this so that you guys can get on my level, because it's very, very doable to make $3,000 a month passively, which is why I want to teach you guys how to do that in the next episodes and then or the next coaching. But I hope this was helpful. I hope you guys are kind of picking up what I'm putting down, and I think this is really powerful. So